Hawaii has some of the most incredible beaches in all the world, so it was really hard to narrow down a list of just 5 to give you guys. But today on Hawaii's Best, we're going to give you the top 5 beaches in Hawaii.
Aloha! Welcome to Hawaii's Best podcast. Learn the stories behind Hawaii's best experiences, influencers, and businesses. Discover everything that makes Hawaii the Aloha state. And now your host, Bryan Murphy.
Aloha and welcome to episode number 22 of Hawaii's Best. I'm your host, Bryan Murphy, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. You know, here on Hawaii's Best, we explore Hawaii's best experiences, businesses, and influencers, and we get to hear the story from the people behind them. And to stay up to date on future episodes, I want to encourage you to hit that subscribe button and drop a review and a rating below. That helps other people who love Hawaii just like you be able to find this conversation. And like I mentioned today, we're talking all about the top 5 beaches in Hawaii. But before we dive into that, I want to share more about today's sponsor of this episode, and that is Shaka Guide. You probably heard me talk about Shaka Guide before, but Shaka Guide is an app, and it uses your GPS to guide you to amazing places along your way on Hawaii. And Shaka Guide has many different types of guides and tours. It's an automatic kind of turn-by-turn direction, and it means to get you to your destination. And what's cool about it is I've got to experience Shaka Guide firsthand on the west side of Maui. It was really rad just driving around, being on a place that you have before, but hearing some of the history behind some of the locations like in Lahaina and Kaanapali. And it was just a cool kind of guided tour. I don't know about you, but I'm not a huge fan of tour guides and getting on the bus and having to stop where everybody needs to stop or where you're supposed to stop. I like just going where I want to go, and Shaka Guide allows you to do that. And along the way, it gives you some really cool history, but it guides you to some of Hawaii's most iconic spots. So as a self-guided tour, it gives you the freedom to explore the Hawaiian Islands, and you know where to stop and what to do when you stop. So in talking with Andrew, who runs Shaka Guide, he was generous to give Hawaii's Best listeners a free tour. So it's a free tour of the south side of Oahu. And all you got to do is go to livehawaiisbest.com/Shaka, and you'll be able to download the app right there. So go to livehawaiisbest.shaka and download Shaka Guide today, and you can get a free tour of Oahu's south side. Well, like I mentioned today, we are talking about Hawaii's top 5 beaches, and this was super hard to try to narrow down, but I think we did a pretty good job. I want to share with you just right at the top what those 5 beaches are. Some of them you've probably heard of, maybe some you haven't. In no particular order, we place them as Kaanapali Beach on Maui, North Shore, Oahu, number 2, Lanikai on Oahu, number 3, Punalu'u Beach on the Big Island as number 4, and of course, number 5, Waikiki, Oahu as number 5. So number 1, Kaanapali Beach in Maui. Basically, Kaanapali Beach has everything. It's kind of like Waikiki. So if you've been to Waikiki and you kind of know what it's about, you can learn how to surf. You can sign up for sailing, snorkeling, boat excursions, kayaking, luau, surf lessons, all that stuff, right? What's really cool about Kaanapali is that you can do all that there, but it doesn't have the huge crowds as Waikiki does. Now, Kaanapali is kind of a stretch where there's a lot of hotels and spas, resorts and whatnot, but it's not as crowded as Waikiki. You still have the tourist vibe and all that stuff and those amenities, but you can also do some of those things that Hawaii is known for. Obviously, amazing surf, water, and the amazing beach. When we're hanging out at the West End, really cool about Kaanapali is that right across the walkway from the resorts is the beach. As compared to like Waikiki, you got to cross a street in order to get over to the beach. Right on the beach are the resorts. So that's kind of a cool thing. So if you're on Maui, you're definitely going to want to check out Kaanapali Beach. It's on the west side. Tons of places to stay there. Definitely a tourist kind of resort location. It also gives you great views of Maui. When you think about Maui, you think about you got Molokai and you have Lanai staring out from Kaanapali Beach. And this is also an epic place to do some whale watching. So if you're on Maui, definitely check out Kaanapali Beach on the west side. Number 2, North Shore Oahu. If you're looking for like world-class waves, North Shore Oahu is a place to go. So it's a 7-mile beach that hosts some amazing wave competitions during the wintertime. So to really see the North Shore in all its glory, huge waves and the surf competitions, really it's going to happen between the months of November and February are the best times to catch some of the big wave surfing. Now, these waves can be massive, like up to 30 feet or more, and it's even dangerous for experienced surfers. So it kind of goes without saying, if it looks crazy, if it looks gnarly, don't go out. And just kind of a rule of thumb, I'll reference this later on in the episode, just kind of some tips when going to the beaches in Hawaii, because they are definitely different than probably some of the beaches that you may be used to. Always go to a beach that has a lifeguard posted. And another tip is to never turn your back on the ocean. The ocean and the waves in Hawaii are a bit unpredictable, and a wave could just sneak up on you and just kind of face plant you into the sand. So just be always cautious and have fun, but just be safe as well. What's really cool about the North Shore is that from like May to September, the waves have subsided, and what was an incredible like surf paradise of these huge waves turns into this tranquil atmosphere of you can still surf, but it's also a bit more safer to go out and swim. So North Shore on Oahu, it's about an hour drive from Waikiki. It's a beautiful drive. You go up the windward side, the east side of the island, or through the middle of the island. Especially if you're going up H3, that drive is incredible. There are a couple ways to get up to the North Shore from Waikiki. And along the way, you're going to find some really cool spots to stop and local spots to get a bite. What I really love about the vibe of the North Shore on Oahu is the vibe and the pace of it all. Especially when you're coming out of Waikiki, Honolulu. It feels like LA in paradise. And it's kind of this juxtaposition, which is pretty interesting. But when you get to the North Shore, it feels like, oh, this is Hawaii. This is what people talk about. So you got to experience it, especially if you're staying on Oahu. Make sure you check out the North Shore for its beaches, but also just for its incredible atmosphere and vibe up there. So maybe if you're going up the east side of Oahu, you're going to want to stop at Lanikai. And Lanikai, you've probably seen, if you follow Hawaii's Best on Instagram, Hawaii's.best, you probably see us posting a lot of shots of these two islets, these two little islands of this beach. And the beach is Lanikai. It is probably one of the most pristine beaches, turquoise water, pristine sands, calm waves, tropical plants and coconut trees, the whole thing. Like when you think about Hawaii and a beach, Lanikai is pretty much the poster card version of a Hawaiian beach. It's no coincidence that it's called Lanikai because Lanikai translates to heavenly ocean. It's such a fitting name for such a beautiful place. Those islands that are off the shore, those two islets, they're called the Mokulua Islands. And you can actually go on a kayak tour to those islands, and that's epic. I haven't done it, but I know my wife has, and it's such an awesome journey just to get out there and to get back. But it's totally doable. And it's super fun. So traveling over to the big island of Hawaii, this is the probably most famous black sand beach. It's called Punalu'u Beach, and it also is home for endangered green sea turtles. This beach is one of the few areas that the turtles choose to lay their eggs. So if you happen to come across a turtle, you have to keep your distance and let them be. But to take in the beauty of this nature and this incredible creature, it's something that is pretty rare because sea turtles almost never hang out on the beach. And there's only several species of green sea turtles that do this. And this happens to be one of the few locations really on the entire globe. And like I mentioned, you come across a sea turtle, just a few tips. Never touch a turtle. That probably goes without saying. Never feed the turtles. And it's recommended that you stay at least 10 feet from the sea turtles, if not more. Keeping safety in mind and moving away from the animal is super important. But most importantly, enjoy these beautiful creatures, because seeing these incredible sea turtles out on the beach is probably like a once in a lifetime opportunity. So enjoy that moment if you happen to come across it. So kind of back to the beach. Punalu'u is a black sand beach, and it's an expansive and easily accessible beach. It's a great place to go for a swim, a snorkel, or a hike. Camping, you have to have a permit though if you're going to camp there, or to stop for a picnic. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you do go for a swim, you're going to want to be careful because there can be strong currents at times. So always bring water shoes, especially on a black sand beach, because it can get hot pretty quickly. I mean, because it is small fragments of lava, so it can get hot. It can also be painful to walk on. Having some water shoes is definitely a good way to still enjoy the beach, but also to not hurt yourself at the same time. So win-win. Now back over to Oahu, number 5 to wrap up this list. And you can also go to the show notes, and I've also linked a blog post where you can see even more of Hawaii's best beaches, because again, there's just so many and it was hard to choose 5, but number 5 is going to be Waikiki Beach. And that's on the island of Oahu. It's Honolulu's most popular beach. You probably heard of Waikiki. It was once kind of a playground for Hawaiian royalty, and when you step on Waikiki, you can see why. I mean, it's a white sand beach. You have Diamond Head crater in the background. It's that iconic Hawaii picture. White sand beach, the blue water, and Diamond Head in the background. Like you've seen it on the postcards. I'm looking at it right now. I have this Hawaii poster in my office, and that happens to be the picture. So back, let's see, a little history lesson here. Back in the 1880s, a few small hotels opened up there. And one of the first beach resorts there was called Sanssouci. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's French for without worries. Really, since the beginning of hotels and homes coming to Waikiki back in the 1800s, those homes and those hotels, they were built, way too close to the natural shoreline. Since then, if you're on Waikiki, you probably see, there's seawalls, there's some erosion. Even some of the sand gets brought in from other islands like Molokai, where some sand actually gets shipped over to fill in some of the sand there on Waikiki. But Waikiki is one of those places you got to do it. I mean, you have to experience it at least once, right? Just to say I went to Waikiki and I got to experience the beach that everybody talks about. But personally, I can only take Waikiki so much. I mean, it is crowded, a lot of tourists there, and that's totally fine. Like when I talk to people and they only stayed around Waikiki, Honolulu area, and their only impression of Hawaii was that, like, Hawaii is so much more than Waikiki, Honolulu, Diamond Head. I mean, those are all incredible places, and you got to experience it at least once. But to really explore the islands, you're going to need to get out there, and you're going to need to get lost a little bit, because Hawaii is meant to be discovered. Hawaii is meant to be enjoyed and treasured. And there's something special about getting out into nature, and there's something special about hiking somewhere and experiencing a view that was earned because of the hike. You can't get that in Waikiki, but you got to experience it at least once, right? So I hope this list has helped you. I do want to leave you guys with a few just reminders and tips when it comes to ocean safety, because this stuff is super important. When it comes to swimming in the beaches of Hawaii, like I mentioned, always go to a beach that is staffed by lifeguards. If you're from Southern California, the waves and the way the water acts is completely different than in Hawaii. It can get pretty scary pretty quickly if you're not paying attention. Like I mentioned, never turn your back to the ocean, and always look for posted beach hazard rating signs. Growing up here in Southern California, going to a beach like Huntington, you see some of the hazard rating signs like, black ball or whatever, and you kind of roll your eyes a little bit like, okay, yeah, don't go out, whatever. But the surf and the beaches in Hawaii, you have to heed those warnings and those closures. They're there for a reason. It's unfortunate hearing some of the stories about how people get in trouble and get stuck. during the wintertime, there's always lifeguard rescues, especially on the North Shore, of professional experienced surfers. So that should tell you something to enjoy it, but always cautiously enjoy and be on your toes when you step into the water. And also, I got to say, as a reminder, to always pick up your trash. So whatever you bring with you, I know it sounds pretty elementary, but you'd be surprised at how many beach pickups there are and how much trash there is at some of these beaches. I mean, it takes an effort and it takes organizations to come in and clean up the beaches and to do our part, to do your part. Simply just throw your trash away. If you enjoy Hawaii and you enjoy vacationing there and you enjoy your experience there, to do your part and just simply pick up your trash. And on top of that, if you listen to the episode 021 with Garrett from Maui Brewing Company, we talked a lot about plastic water bottles, and that's another thing to be mindful of. I know it's tempting to, as soon as you land, to go ahead and, go to a big box store, get a big pallet of water bottles and use that for your vacation. But maybe next time, bring a reusable water bottle. Maybe just get a large jug of water, use that to refill your water bottles. Instead of just using a bunch of little plastic water bottles, that all needs to go somewhere. It is an island. So just to keep that in mind, Hawaii is meant to be enjoyed, explored, and discovered. So I hope that this list of top 5 beaches really has helped give you an idea of what to expect on your next stay on the island. So if you found any value in this episode, I would just ask you to let us know in the ratings below, leave a review, and go ahead and hit subscribe. That helps other people be able to find this conversation all about Hawaii. And everything mentioned in this episode will be on our show notes page. You go to livehawaiisbest.com/episode 022. It'll be all there for you. And again, thank you so much for joining us today on Hawaii's Best. And until next time, be well. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to Hawaii's Best Podcast. To stay up to date on future episodes, be sure to hit the subscribe button and find us at livehawaiisbest.com.